Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Band Rants channel, your home for NFL projections, predictions, and of course, your periodic rant. And in this video, we're going to be going over my Week 11 picks and how I did and where I went right, where I went wrong. And I'm going to talk about my Week 12 picks and make my final picks here. I'm also going to possibly make a video after this talking about the current long-term playoff picture to the end of the year. And we're almost about 2/3 of the way through the season, so that'd be a really good time to do it possibly for next week. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk about Week 11 and Week 12. But before I do, if you're new to the channel, please make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and we'll go ahead and start. So these are all the picks I made for Week 11, and I went over this in one of my last videos. There was a couple of games I missed. I did a little bit better for the most part. AFC, I almost got perfect. I didn't expect the Texans beating Tennessee. I don't think anybody really did. I certainly didn't expect that. The Colts beating the Bills, I can reason with. A bit of a surprise, but everything else seemed right, except for the Jets and Dolphins. I mean, that was a Sophie's choice. Again, I probably should have went with the Dolphins, but I figured the Jets at home would give them a little bit of a challenge, but I guess not. Interconference, I almost did a perfect score. Dallas obviously was a pick over Kansas City, but they're starting to get hot at the right time, which is going to make the playoff race really interesting here. NFC, again, Vikings over Green Bay, understandable. All of these are really understandable flips, except for Washington, which is somehow keeping it interesting. I did a little bit better for the most part. I did miss a couple of games that were not necessarily easy. The ones I missed were really strange surprise upsets, except for the Dolphins and Colts, and maybe Philadelphia could be an understandable win. But Week 12, obviously I want to try to make sure that I play a bit more conservative this time. We'll start over with the interconference and look at the Thanksgiving games, because that's where we have a lot of the early action. Dallas. I expect Dallas to have some trouble, but they are in Jerry World, although you could argue the Raiders are due for a sort of big win that they haven't gotten in a little bit. They've been on a downward spiral the last couple of games, although Dallas potentially is going to be without a lot of starters that might not be back on time. Tyron Smith could be back, but if the Raiders are able to get pressure on Dak Prescott, it's going to be a long day. We saw what Denver did to them, and the Raiders, with all due respect, have a better offense than Denver does. I'm actually going to go on a limb and get a lot of backlash from Cowboys fans for doing it, but I'm going to take the Raiders. And I took the Cowboys last week, and they cost me, so I'm going to go the other way this time. Bills over the Saints. Both of these teams are sort of on the outside looking in, which I projected it for the Saints, not necessarily for the Bills, but I can get into that later. I'm going to go with probably Buffalo to take a bounce back win. Panthers over the Finns. I think the Panthers have more to play for, but I think the Dolphins are probably going to get the upset. Falcons over Jacksonville. Atlanta's in a much better place, although Jacksonville plays a little bit better at home with the exception of this week. But San Francisco is also a better team than Atlanta. So I'm going to go ahead and give Atlanta the win. Bucks over the Colts. Having Goatman lose 3 games in a row is almost unheard of, let alone 2, which has already happened. But the Colts have just been playing with a lot more fire lately, and I really can't explain it. They've just been on a roll. And Goatman doesn't usually play very well on the road. So at the risk of possibly having this one flop right in my face, I'm going to take the Colts winning that game in an upset, but expect a really fun matchup. I think Frank Reich is going to have a lot of interesting plays up his sleeve. I think Todd Bowles is going to come up with some great ways to go after Carson Wentz. That, in my opinion, is going to be a great game, and it should be a Monday night game. I think that's way more interesting than Seattle and Washington, although Tampa did just play on Monday night this past week, so I understand it not being there. Bears and Lions, a snooze fest. Good in terms of historic rivalries, bad in terms of what we have in front of us this year. I'm still going to go with the Lions getting their first win. They've been getting very close the last couple of weeks, and I think that they're overdue for that first win. I think Chicago is also going to be reeling after that loss at home to Baltimore, and I think that the Lions are going to try and capitalize on that momentum. Eagles and the Giants, I'm going to go with Philadelphia. They've been playing with much more intensity and much more to play for than the Giants currently do. LA over Green Bay, they're off the bye. Green Bay at Lambeau is undefeated, and the Rams have actually been a really, really hard team to figure out. But Stafford knows Green Bay pretty well. He's been playing in Lambeau against the Packers his entire career, this year being no different. I'm actually going to go with Green Bay simply because although the Rams are going to keep it interesting down the stretch, Rodgers is just playing that well, and I can see him having a big reason to bounce back after that loss to Minnesota, which, by the way, is our next game, Minnesota at the Niners. Big wild card matchup, and in my opinion, with the exception of the Green Bay game, probably the best game between interconference and NFC, in my opinion, just because there's so much between the two teams in the conference. It'll make the wild card race pretty interesting here. Now, if you look at San Francisco, their home record is great, but if you look at Minnesota, their road record is subpar, not quite as bad as San Francisco's. And the last time we've seen San Francisco go on a 2-game winning streak were the first 2 weeks of the season and these last 2 weeks. So they've been a pretty hard team to figure out. But I'm going to go ahead and give San Francisco the win, although don't be surprised if it's a one-possession game. Seattle at Washington, I'm going with Washington. I think Seattle is starting to take that dip that I projected a couple of years ago that around this time or last year they'd be starting to have. I'm going to make a different video about that, but I'll focus on the Week 12 picks right now. Jets and Texans, I'm going to go with Houston. Steelers at the Bengals. This one is going to be interesting. I'm not exactly sure how many of Pittsburgh's defensive starters will be back. I know Joe Burrow actually has been playing better on the road than at home. At home, he's actually struggled against a lot of teams, including the Browns, even though they won against Minnesota, they've actually struggled and almost won it, but they have struggled against those kinds of teams at home. So I'm actually going to give the Steelers the win in that one, which would put them at the 7th seed for now, but we haven't gotten into the rest of this. Titans over New England, that's going to be a great game. At New England, excuse me. That's going to be a great game. And I really think that the Patriots are going to take it. I don't know why, but I just have a feeling they're going to take it. Chargers at the Broncos, upset potentially, especially with Denver coming off the bye, but at home they haven't looked that great, really. I mean, we're used to Denver dominating in the trenches in the Mile High, but the Chargers have also been an amazing road team. So I'm going to take the Chargers here, and I think they're going to ride that wave and take advantage of the fact that they have a tiebreaker over the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are on the bye. So they're going to take a first place seat for now by virtue of tiebreaker and conference record in the AFC West. And Browns at the Ravens. I expect Baltimore to win the division. I've been saying that from day one. I'm still saying it today. And I think they're going to win this game. I won't say easily, but I will say by at least 7 to 10 points. Because I think the Browns are taking a step back. Baltimore's taking a step forward. Even though they didn't have Lamar Jackson, they can win ugly. And the defense is starting to get solid at the right time. Now, obviously, Cleveland's offense is better than Chicago's, but you get the point. Baltimore is getting hot at the right time. This is when Lamar Jackson starts to really shine, by the way. And on Sunday night with the lights on bright, he is undefeated in Baltimore. He's 2-0 on a Sunday night in M&T Bank. So that's what I have for Week 12. Hopefully you guys like the video, and I'll see you in the next one.